Hello Cave Dwellers, welcome into the cave. Now, the first thing that happened when I came back from my recent break was I bumped into Richard and he said, Neil, I've got to show you all the things that I've been working on because you've been building ever more into the Heber range of products that you've been making for retro enthusiasts, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is your latest two things that you wanted to show us today. So a bit of a show and tell today with Richard. And we spent yesterday just playing with these so I could get familiar with it.
Yeah.
And there's lots of footage, as you can see here, of us getting to know the product, which is called, Richard?
The MultiPi and the MultiPi JAMMA.
What is it? Tell us all about it.
Okay, so for some time now we've wanted to do a range of control systems, gaming control systems based around the Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi is a very popular range. It's got a good support in software, good software emulation for all sorts of different systems. So we looked at the Raspberry Pi CM4, which is actually an embedded module that you can buy. Yeah, you can actually buy it in a little modular format, which is really nice. Designed for industrial controls and automation and various things, so it's quite well rugged, but it also allows you to move around all of the connectors so you can put it into a really nice form factor.
So the chip that's on there is effectively the full-fat CPU that you get on a normal Pi.
It comes with a few extra enhancements actually over the standard Raspberry Pi 4 range. So it is like the 4 range, but it's got a few extra enhancements.
Okay, so that's the beating heart of the product. It clips on and you've effectively got a games console.
Yes, you've got a carrier board where we've turned it into a games console. One of the things we really wanted to do was, the thing you get with Raspberry Pis is they put them in a little case and you end up putting a power switch in line because they don't have an on-off switch. You end up putting a hub on there because they don't have enough USB ports for your controllers and things. And then you end up putting all sorts of other things and it turns into a bit of a monster with cables. And then normally you have quite a short cable to your display to reduce interference on the normal Raspberry Pis. So you end up putting it around the back of your television or that sort of thing.
We're talking analog displays.
Yeah, you're talking analog displays.
Avoid interference, yeah.
Yeah, so you end up then having it round the back of your screen with cables come all around, and it's a bit cumbersome, a bit difficult to get to. So what we wanted to do is make sure we had a nice console form factor really that you could put in front of your display, whether that's your LCD, your OLED or your CRT. Yeah.
So that's product one.
Yeah.
Just tell us briefly what the second thing is.
Yeah, so the next complementary product we wanted to do that was something for the arcade. We've got the arcade archive here, so in our minds is very much something that wants to run on arcade machines. We took the JAMMA form factor and it turned that into a board that could plug straight into any JAMMA arcade. So this has got the standard JAMMA arcade pin out. It's actually the Neo Geo one, so you've got a couple of extra buttons that you can use for Neo Geo, and it's also got kick harnesses, controllers for, it's got a built-in control dock. So one of our control dock boards, it's Control Dock Arcade, so it can do spinners, trackballs, all sorts of different arcade controls, so you can plug in.
We'll come back and look at exactly what's on the boards in a moment. Let's get back to the console version first of all. You've got it nicely packaged in a case here, which makes it really nice. I can see it's got wireless from the antenna at the back, various ports on the back. Just tell us quickly what we've got there.
Yeah, so we've basically got usual ports at the back. We've got a couple of USB ports. We've got Ethernet. We've got power over Ethernet, so you can power this via remote Ethernet if you want to. You've got a composite video because that comes with the Pi as standard, so it's quite nice if you've got a composite video television. You've got two HDMI ports, so you can run in single screen or dual screen mode, and you've got our standard barrel jack power that we use 5 volt to power everything. Around the front, we've got a power on off switch, and we've got a USB ports for 4 controllers. You can use them for anything. And of course, the SD card where you can put your games and the operating system on. So the only other thing you'll see is on the top, we have these nice 2 cartridge ports, which you can plug a NVMe cartridge in the front, so that's actually PCI Express ×1, and that's one thing that the CM4 module has over the standard Pi 4. Standard Pi 4 doesn't have a high-speed PCI Express interface, which is quite nice. So you can do all sorts of things with that. One of the expansions we've got is basically just a very high solid-state storage device you can plug in there to boot operating systems, run games, all that sort of thing.
Hold your horses, Richard. I have to say a quick thank you to PCBWay.com, who are the sponsor of this episode. And if you take a dig into their website at PCBWay.com, check out their shared projects and look in the retro stuff section, you'll find a familiar name. As well as lots of awesome, useful retro projects that you can order with one click, you'll also find one of Heber's open source projects in there. I recommend PCBWay.com for all your PCB and related needs, and we thank them for their support.
And then the back cartridge, we have one cartridge at the moment, which is the analog output, and that's got SCART, VGA, and stereo sound.
Nice. Yeah. So this, you don't have to use the SD card, you could put your OS on this SSD.
Yep, that's right, yeah, and it's a standard form factor in there. It's the M2 PCI form factor, so you can buy those in any size you want, really. So you can put a couple of terabytes of space if you wish.
Okay, so if you're feeling flush, you might have an Amiga one, a C64 one, slot in, put a nice label on there, slot in your cartridge.
That's it, that's exactly it. We hope that people will use this for their systems or different configurations, because it is a Raspberry Pi. You can run it as a full desktop computer, so you can plug it in, have your dual screen output, high resolutions, and you can surf the internet and do whatever else you want to do on a decent Linux computer, or you can plug in other cartridges and go full-on gaming and enjoy that. Yeah.
Surfing the internet, Richard.
Surfing the internet.
Whatever next.
Great, isn't it? Downloading.
I wanted to see how far we could push this thing, and well, you can see from the footage here, I tried PlayStation N64, which ran really nicely, a bit of wave race here, and then pushed it onto the Dreamcast. A bit of, is this Jet Grind radio or Jet Set radio, one of the two. Again, super smooth and lovely. Because the Pi and emulation on the Pi is so mature now, it's been going for so many years, this really benefits from all of that development work on the software side, doesn't it?
Definitely. There's still a very, very good place for software emulation. It's got a lot of opportunities, a lot of capabilities, and not everything needs to be done in hardware. It can be done in software. So the Pi has had a wonderful ecosystem, and just the front ends, the fact you can get a lot of the artwork and various things and really dive into those games and systems and libraries and explore. And it's always changing. So it's quite nice that we've seen a lot of work put into the Raspberry Pi 3, and slowly over the last few years, all of that work's been ported to the Raspberry Pi 4 and the CM4. So we're seeing a lot of benefits for all of those operating systems and retro game stations being able to port it over. Yeah.
We'll come on to upgrades in a minute, because obviously the CM4 pops off, and I'm interested in that. But let's just go back to the arcade board now. I'll put it on the table so people can see it. Can you tell us a little bit about what is needed, because you are part of the arcade archive as well. You know what it takes to run an arcade and the things that are needed to drive an arcade, make it look nice, make it sound nice. What have you done to make this board special for the arcade? So specifically, we needed to think about a number of things. With a lot of arcade cabinets, they're wired in all sorts of different ways, so you're never quite sure how the quality of the wiring, quality of the power supplies, especially with the audio. So one of the very first things we did was make sure we put down a really high quality Class D amplifier with some really nice big inductors on there. And what that does, it actually gives you a really good signal throughout the audio side of things, because usually you've just got a couple of wires going to your audio speaker, whether it's mono or stereo in these cabinets. They're often not twisted, and they're often wrapped around the video signals or your control signals. So one of the first things we did was make sure we got a really rock solid analog audio amplifier in there, which again has got volume control. Yeah, and you can use an external amplifier if you wish, but it comes all through the JAMMA connector. The next thing was controls. So it's very important that when you walk up to an arcade machine, you've got left and right controls, player 1, player 2, and when you press those buttons, they respond incredibly quickly. So low latency. And this has evolved from an earlier product that Heber made called the control dock. So you learn lots of lessons in creating a super low latency interface. And then that's built right on here, which is really cool to see that sort of evolve and develop into another product. Yeah, it effectively is it's a standalone control dock for arcade controls. So we'll be doing more with this in the future, but this is the first instance of it used on this board. So we can now connect trackballs and spinners and all sorts of other arcades and analog controls if we wish. We've got a kick harness there. If you've got Street Fighter, you need more buttons. We need to be able to connect those up. Question for the viewers, because we were debating this yesterday. Where did the name kick harness come from? Is it because it gives you the extra kick buttons in a 6-button game? If you know, let us know in the comments. What else have we got here then? Okay, so after that, then you need to make sure you've got a few settings that you can tweak with, because not all monitors are the same. So we've got a sync control for the 15 kilohertz output.
and that's over there. And we've got a VGA style connector for the medium and high resolutions you find in some arcade machines, like some of the Ataris or some of the later games. So we tried to cover all of that. You can still run HDMI if you want to.
Yeah, so you could effectively just use this as the regular console if you wanted,
you
couldn't you?
Your difficulty is getting your power in. So we have got all power coming in through the JAMMA. So it really is designed for arcade use. But yes, it's not a lot different, and they are completely software compatible. So anything you do on the MultiPi, you can put on the MultiPi JAMMA. Yeah.
So you could have this in a machine. Could you have a secondary HDMI out to have a bigger display?
You could,
perhaps duplicating. I suppose that all comes down to software, doesn't it? You've got your outputs. It depends on how you.
Exactly. It depends how you've got it all configured up. So you've still got your SD card. You've still got your mass storage. So again, you could have a whole range of arcades on there if you want to, or just one specific one. You could just have just one game you like, pop it in, and away you go. And you could change those as if you were, changing cartridges on a Neo Geo system or that sort of thing. So that's quite nice.
There's a heatsink on the JAMMA one. That's a standard, is it? That's not one you've added?
Yeah, no, that's a high quality. It's the official Raspberry Pi heatsink. Doesn't need a fan. None of these systems need a fan.
I was going to ask about that because your console one doesn't have a heatsink, but
but
obviously
it has on that one.
Cool enough.
Yeah, so you've got you do that one's just to show off the CM4. But in a standard, it comes like that, and with the antenna as well, which plugs in and goes to the back. So yeah, as a configuration, it comes with the heatsink as standard. You can buy them in two configurations, just the board on its own if you want to 3D print your own case or design anything around that, or you can buy it with the 3D printed cases that we have professionally produced here, and we have the really nice stickers from Retrofied. These have got polycarbonate coatings over the top, so they're really scratch proof and they work really, really well. So we've been doing that on all of our products with the polycarbonate tops.
And I was really pleased when I went down to the arcade cab and saw these fitted, because this is just a couple of rails. So if you're an arcade operator, those are in your cabinet. You've got the chunky handle, you've got the connector there, and you just chunk the MultiPi JAMMA in there and you're away, or rip it out if you want to go and work on it. Or,
it's very nice. Functional, that device. So it isn't flashy with the case, but it really works quite well, and with the rails as well, sliding it in and out. That's what you need in an arcade machine when it's dark. We've learned that having our own arcade here. You just want to be able to take an existing board out, pop a new one in, and not fiddle around with little SD cards and things. You want to put the whole thing in. So it's really quite a nice way of doing it.
Super impressed with the quality of the picture on it.
Yeah,
looks really great.
Nice. Yeah, looks really good on arcade monitors. It's really designed for that. It's that sort of low resolution but high crisp quality is really good. Yeah.
And we've tried various flavors of operating system and setup. My favorite, I have to say, was RGB-Pi, which before I started tinkering with this, I hadn't tried that before, and it was a real revelation. It does auto resolution switching, just detects the games nicely when you put them on there. Just lovely on the Sony CRTs I've got here and down. Was that what we were running on the arcade? Was it?
It was, yes. Yeah, we've got that on there. So we've got a couple of builds. The RGB-Pi one is very good. It's been going for a couple of years now. The team there do put a lot of effort in, and it's one of those that you can actually name your own price. So you can download it for free, but please, if you do use RGB-Pi, maybe consider giving them a donation there when you download and use it, because it is a really, really nice operating system. It's very sleek, very minimal, but it's still nice to use. It's still friendly. It's still easy to use, and it supports a lot of systems, not just the arcade. So you can run it in the arcade machine. You can run it on JAMMA, MultiPi JAMMA, but it's really nice on the consoles as well.
Fantastic. And we've also tried a few other things which you can see on the screen here. Recall box.
Recall box, that's really well established. It's got a lot of the analog outputs that we use in this. We're compatible with the standard RGB-Pi standard for the analog output. So any operating system that supports that is basically VGA 666 in mode 6. That's basically what we're doing on the side of things.
But Heber, let's remind ourselves, Heber are primarily a hardware manufacturer. You're putting this out there for people to play with and put whatever software. You could run this as a desktop computer if you wanted, using the HDMI out and none of the analog cartridge or the VGA out. You can do all sorts with this. So it's really, we're fascinated to see what people do with it, what software they put on there and what they come up with. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Let's talk about upgrades. So as I mentioned earlier, the Pi, obviously CM4 module pops off. Yeah. Can I put something else on in its place?
Yeah, and when we were designing it, we had this carrier board done quite some time ago, actually. So we were waiting for the Raspberry Pis to become back in stock and become available for the industrial market. We didn't want to go down the route of using an off-the-shelf Raspberry Pi 4 because that's not what we do. We try to make these more consoleized. We try to give them more embedded and high quality. We use lots of good quality connectors. But the choice of the actual module, because it's an open standard, we could have chosen modules that are based on the RISC architecture. It doesn't have to be the ARM-based architecture. And there are about 10 different modules from different suppliers all around the world. Some of them require heat sinks, some of them require fan sinks, and some of them require big fans. But
so you're watching me struggle get this on. Carry on.
Are you putting it around the right way?
The wrong way.
So yeah, they do just go on and click.
I don't want to force it and bend any legs.
Yeah,
pins.
It's fairly easy just to pop down. So you just
fine.
need to pop the two sides down.
So lots of different flavors that you could put on there.
Yeah. The RISC-V architectures are becoming, again, they're open as well. So there's more and more people not having to pay ARM for a license and put an ARM chip in there. They're putting RISC-V in there. So we're starting to see modules like the CM4 with really high-powered processors, and the operating systems are really coming along. So we're really excited to see what people do with this. Whether you just want to buy that as our baseboard and not with the Raspberry Pi CM4, that's fine. That's available now. But if you want to buy it with the CM4, we've chosen the middle spec one, so it's the 4 GB version. There is an 8 gig and there is a 2 and a 1, but the 4 GB pretty much does everything. It's way overkill for the arcade, but it's fantastic for Dreamcast and other things for consoles. So it's a really nice middle ground, and it runs really well as a desktop computer as well. So yeah.
So like everything that you guys make for a retro audience down at Heber, it's quite a niche market.
Yeah.
So you've got to get your stock levels right, but you do have a date. Remember,
5th of November.
5th of November is when you'll get your MultiPi console if you order it, or when it will be shipped.
Yeah.
A little bit longer for the JAMMA, is that right?
Yeah, we've just finished on all the JAMMA side, so we're putting that into the shop. It will be available, and you'll be able to get the orders in. It just might be a few weeks, maybe a month or so after when we can actually ship that out.
Okay, so short pre-order on the JAMMAs.
Yeah.
5th of November for the MultiPis. How many are we talking in the first batch?
Our first batch of CM4 modules, because that's really what we're basing it on, we got a batch of 500 CM4 modules from the Raspberry Pi Foundation. So that's great. We've got something to work with. We can put more orders in for more modules as time goes on and as we gauge demand, and we'll try and keep this in stock, as we've done with other products. With the Console and our other products, we've tried to keep in stock all the time.
Yeah,
so
that's nice. So there's not a huge wait to get a hold of them. And yeah, demand dictates what happens next, doesn't it? If people take to this, I mean, you can see from the footage, from the B-roll, from the games that Richard and I have been playing, that it works really nicely. If you come and visit the cave, we'll have one set up either here or in the demo room next door where you can try it out for yourselves. I think it's a great product. You know, it really sits in that lineup of Heber things that you're creating nicely. You've got things like the Agon, you've got, you open sourced the multi-system, the control dock. And can you tease us with anything else?
Yeah, we've got a few more things. So we're still doing a lot of work around the multi-system ecosystem. So we've been doing snack cartridges for people to use. So we've got the 5-port PC Engine snack cart that's about to go up in the shop. So by the time you get this video, it'll be available to buy in the shop. We've got a 2-port Super Nintendo, because that was very popular and people only had options for a single port plugging into the snack for other things. We've got a Saturn cartridge coming as well, which is nice. And also, what's the other one?
N64?
N64, 4-port N64 as well. So yeah, quite a lot of snack cartridges to fill out the range in the multi-system.
And am I right in saying they're not just snack cartridges for the multi-system? They've got a port, so you can just use them as snack adapters for any Mister system, which is really nice.
All the new cartridges that we've been doing, so the PlayStation 1, from the PlayStation 1 all through all these new cartridges, has got a little USB 3 mini port on the side, so you can put a little cable on and you can go into your normal Mister stack or any of the other sort of Mister ecosystems that are out there. So you don't have to use it with the multi-system, but it is very nice having a little cartridge you just plug straight in. So yeah.
And am I allowed to talk about that box down there?
Yeah, so
What's in the box, Richard?
What's in the box? Yes, the other thing we've been looking at is a range of modular controls, which we're calling Modularc. And this is basically, again, stimulating from the need for real controls connected to arcade machines, but also you might want to connect them to your desktop system, maybe the MultiPi, maybe your multi-system, or any other type of Raspberry Pi computer or that sort of thing. But how do we get a nice, easy way of getting controls for arcades? So spinners, trackballs, flight sticks, all that sort of thing. So what we've tried to do, and it's still in conceptual form at the moment, we've got the first product ready to release, which again, that will be in the shop for a limited pre-order because we want feedback. We're actually asking for feedback on the first control stick we've got, which is for the Neo Geo. So it'll be a dedicated Neo Geo control pad, which you can use on real Neo Geo hardware. You can also use it by plugging it into our Control Dock Classic. You've got the 2 ports on there for the Neo Geo, and then you can plug that USB into any of the other types of controllers you've got. So there will be a range of these. Again, if it's popular, this is something we try to stimulate because we try to sort of say this is what we could do. We've got a few prototypes and examples of lots of the other controllers that we will do if it's popular.
One that really stands out is the Akari Warriors. Is that something you're thinking about producing, or was that just a proof?
No, absolutely.
Oh,
yeah, I've always wanted to do that.
That's got the twist within the stick, doesn't it?
Yeah,
which is awesome.
At the moment, it's fully 3D printed. So it has the heart of a joystick, but all of the rotary controls, the encoding and everything else is 3D printed. So again, you could produce your own, you could tweak it to your own requirements. It is compatible with the original Akari Warriors joysticks, so that's quite nice. You can put it in an arcade machine or you can have it on your desktop, because that's a little bit harder to simulate when you're actually doing that rotary control.
That's the next step with emulation. It's great having these devices, and then it can all fall down if you don't have the right input device, and it just feels a bit odd. I'm sure we'll visit them as that evolves, but do leave your comments and your thoughts about everything that you've seen today, or if you want to see anything else. All the links will be below to Heber's Twitter account, Richard's Twitter account, mine, so you can put in a request in the comment if you want to see a picture or anything, and we can pop that up for you to have a look. Good luck with the sale of it, Richard.
Thank you.
Really nice product and a really nice addition to the growing range of retro products from Heber. Thank you for showing us.
Thank you.